Hi, welcome back. Wanted to try and do the second part of my original video. Unfortunately YouTube shut my account down because I didn't get enough subscribers, so I had to reopen a new one. The second video had some Halo music playing in the background, so they disallowed it, so I've got to start that one from scratch. Anyway, we're going to go on with a few extra bits. I've gone from an EVA Foam Master Chief up to a fully cast resin Master Chief. This is part of what you can see. However, I've still been using EVA to make some of the armour pieces that are on the undersuit. I don't know if you can see there, that's part of it as well. This is part of the back piece. So the EVA is still current, I'm still using it regularly, and I've had to sort of improvise and adapt and overcome and learn some new techniques, because the new Master Chief in Halo 4, Halo 5 has got some armour pieces on the underside, especially on the shoulders, around the torso area, on the back and areas like that, where there's a hexagonal type of material. Can't find it, it's very difficult to actually mimic it. The closest I've found is a very thin type of foam that's got a very fine hexagon, but this stuff is next to useless for what I require. But I have come up with a workaround, and this is one of the pieces that I've made which will support the shoulder armour and will cover part of the under armour. And as you can see, it's got a hexagonal pattern in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the second part of this today, and I will show you how I made this with some of the techniques that we discussed in the other video, and also how to get this hexagonal effect. As you can see here on this piece, it's come out quite well. It's flexible. I've used it as padding because this digs in. It's also a bit of a spacer, and it's also for me to be able to attach Velcro to as I need. So it's EVA foam that's on some hard cast. So yeah, we'll show you how that one works today. Okay, so we're going to be making this armour piece. First thing we're going to need is a fresh sheet of EVA foam. We've also got our template, and as we discussed before, we want symmetry. So what I've done is I've done half of it, cut my cutouts, which then gives me a symmetrical piece. And if you look at the way the cutouts are, they will then join so that you get that edge moves all the way round. The finished piece will eventually look like that. So, position, draw around, and then we're going to cut out. On the edges I'm going to require just a slight chamfer, so I'm going to cut at an angle, and then we'll get our final piece. Okay, so we're going to be using our scalpel blades. I'm going to put a brand new one in. Obviously being very careful to make sure we put it in correctly, but also to make sure that we get rid of the old blade into somewhere where it's not going to get into the garbage and hurt someone. So here we are, here's our shape. As you can see, it's already been drawn, and what we're going to do now is cut out. The nice thing about a brand new scalpel blade is it goes through really easy. Gives you a really good smooth cut, no edges that get torn, plus also because it's nice and easy, you're not forcing, which means that there's a little bit less danger of you slipping and hurting yourself. So always use the sharpest, newest blade that you can. Obviously with the chamfer, because I'm right-handed, it works well to do that. And obviously when I come to the other side, I want to work so that my right hand giving me that angle. And of course, what you can do, if you want to make it easier for yourself, is just cut out the piece you're working on. And then it's a much easier thing to do. The problem with that is you can't always foresee where your waste is going to be, and you end up wasting probably more of the foam than you really want to. So it's just a case of whatever makes it easier for you. But it's much easier to maneuver a small piece of EVA than an entire sheet. So as you can see, we've got really nice smooth edges because we've got a nice new blade. So what we need to do now is we need to think about how we're going to cut these to give us the ability to get this shape. So we're going to cut this one that way, that one that way, and we don't want too much of an angle because we don't want it to be a 90 degree. So I'm going to go in at around about a 30 degree angle. So as you can see, we've got a valley. So when that goes together, that will give us our nice curve and a joint. So there we have our shape. What we do have, because of the raised areas underneath, is we do have a few areas where it's a little bit rough. So what you can do is go around the very bottom at about a 45 degree angle and just cut a slither slither off. And that cleans those edges up quite nicely. I'm not too worried about the edges on this one because it's hidden under a lot of the armour and you won't see it. The most important thing is the top, because this is what's going to have that shape and the pattern in it. So this is the bit that I need to make sure I keep it from getting scratched. If you do get a little tear there, it's where I've gone around a corner, you ended with a little tear, you can actually sandpaper it, and what that will, it will just move out. So bear with me. For your nails. As you can see, we now have relatively smooth. It doesn't matter too much about getting rid of the tiny little ridges, because when we heat this later on to seal it, it will actually smooth out on its own, but you just want to make sure you've got, see there's another one there, so get rid of the tag and then you can just sand it down. Ideally you want a fairly fine grain, because if you have too thicker, too coarser grain, then it will actually start to tear the foam. So it might take a little bit longer, but you get a much better result. you get the idea. I'm not going to do too much of it because it's a short video, but I'll do that before we finish. And then you're around just to knock off any tags. And there we are. So the next thing we've got to do is we've got to get this pattern. And as you can see, we've got to go from that to that. I looked at all sorts of ways of doing it. I looked at trying to cast it in latex and all sorts of things, and I came up with an idea one day. You can buy these on eBay or Amazon. They're like a spanner set. You put a bar through it and you can use it to undo nuts and stuff. They come in lots of different sizes all the way down. And this one here was the one that actually looked about the size I wanted, which is an 11mm, and that is about the size that was required. I looked at some of the details on one of the Master Chief sites, and that looked about right. So what I've done is I'm using it as a punch. So you just need a hammer, one of these, a solid surface, and patience. And by a solid surface I mean a block of wood or something like that, because you do end up making marks in things, so I don't want to damage my cutting board. So you basically do this. So the thing to do is to try and start in one position, and then you've got to try and move everything in the same direction. So bear with. So what I've done is I've drawn a line in the center, and I'm going to do my pattern from the bottom to the top, and I'm going to do it so that it joins up, and as you can see from the hexagon you have a flat and a flat. So I'm going to do the flats. Okay, so what we're going to do is move along, but what you've got to be careful of is if you hammer too heavy, you'll almost end up cutting the piece out and it'll be too big. So you just got to find the depth that you want to go, and then just remember how much pressure you did put on. I'd say probably less is more. If you go too much, it can just look a bit wrong. So what you're going to do is do your first line, trying to be as accurate as you can, and I am not particularly accurate on this one, but you know what, it doesn't matter too much. And what you'll end up with is your first line, and what you then do is use this line to then move and just basically put it in and make the hexagon and move outwards. So I'll do a couple more and then I shall do the before and after. So obviously the flats will be still top and bottom, and it's all really down to time and patience as to how accurate you are. So you can see there we have a pattern starting to emerge. So I'm going to get on with this. I'm going to go across the whole thing all the way through, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so there we go, all done, all the way across. You can see got a hexagon pattern. So what we're going to do now, before we do anything more, is we're going to get the shape, because we're going to have to heat this to make it work, and I don't want to have to heat and then have to glue it in everything. So what I'm going to do, because I want a relatively quick job and I want a good seal, I'm going to use the impact adhesive. Usually it's the glue gun, but for this one I want a fairly quick seal on it, so just going to give it a little bit of glue on both sides. And obviously with the impact adhesive you have to let it dry. but I especially want to make sure that I've got glue right up to these very sharp edges. These are where I need it to be stuck properly. The thing about the hot glue is it's sometimes a bit difficult to get it in the place that you want and then not get it sort of spurting out, so it's best to use a little bit of the contact adhesive. So I'm just going to let that go off, and whilst I'm doing that, another part you can probably see is this curve here. Now that has not been cut, that has just been folded, but what I have done is I put a channel on the other side that allows it to fold, and then I can then put some glue in there to hold it. So what we do with this one is our little 45-degree channels. So with your ruler and your pen, which I can't find, spare one, what I need to do is I put a line on this side, so I'm just going to extend that to there. And what I need to do now is draw that line so we've now got a line, and what I'm going to do is, using my very sharp knife, is I am going to, I can't cut along the line completely because I need that to be the center of my channel, so I'm going to come out about 3 to 4 mil, and I'm going to do a 45-degree cut in, but I'm only going to go in about 5 mil, and then I'll do the same on the other side, and then when I scoop that out I should have a little 45-degree channel. So it can be a little bit hard to line it up, so the best way of doing it is to put the lines either side, and there you've got 3 lines, and then you put your ruler along the line using your scalpel, go in a 45-degree angle, and then to the depth you require. And because you're not going to see this, it doesn't matter if you have to do multiple cuts, because you're not going to see it. It is just a case of, so if your knife is getting a little bit dull, you can do multiple cuts, and then you should be able to peel out the excess, and what it will leave is a nice channel. So when you join that together, you'll be able to hold it inside. So this hasn't quite gone where I wanted it to do, so I'm just going to saw that out along my line. But it's important that you don't go all the way through. You don't want to go through to the other side, you're not cutting it. So what you want is this little channel, so when you fold this over and glue it, it doesn't split, it just allows it to turn. So I'm going to do that with hot glue, so I'm going to do the other side and then I'll glue it. Okay, so there you go, we've got 2 channels, and what we're going to do now is, using our hot glue gun, we are going to put a line of hot glue into, and then we're going to fold it over to where we need it, and we're going to wait. And all the time our impact adhesive is drying and going off, and then once this is gone, we're going to stick down the other side. And the nice thing is once it's stuck, you can always go over it and give it a reinforcing line. So as long as this sticks in position, you can see now we have the shape that we require. Still needs to go off just a little bit more, so I won't bore you with it. I'll come back to you. And there you can see we have both sides done. That's dried off enough for me to leave it. And what I'll do later on is I'll go along with another layer just across the top of it, just to set it in the position it's in. So the next thing I want to do is I want to close up these, and these are the ones I've used the impact adhesive on. The most important thing is to get this line nice and clean and crisp, so I'm not too worried about in there, I'm worried about this one. So ideally working from the top, just push it together, and obviously it's designed that it will bend downwards, so you've got to bend that as you do it. Force it together, squeeze it through, and you're not too worried about the underside because you're going to finish that off with the glue as you need to, but it's really important that you get the top as precise as you can, and ideally with very little seam. It's not going to be perfect. If you wanted it perfect, then you'd use a different material and probably cast it, but as you can see, that's come out reasonably well. I'll leave that one to go, and then the same with this one. Bend it down, stick from the inside, and then move in to the end. And that should be good enough just to hold it in position. What we can do now, as you see, we've got these quite large holes. We can now go in with the hot glue, fill that up, which will now set that into position, and also make sure that it doesn't come apart. Now if you wanted that to be even more flush, once that's glued you could then sand that, but I'm not too worried about it because again it's going to be a part of the armour you don't really see. These are the areas that you're going to see, and they're the bits that I want to be flush. So whilst that's going off, and we hold that in its position, hold that until the glue goes off, and then we'll come to the next bit. Okay, so what we've got now is our piece. It's all glued and it's in position. Glue's gone off quite nicely on those ones. As you can see, once it's gone white, it's completely solid. This is still a bit clear, so just want to let this go a little bit longer. But what we want to do now is seal this for painting, but also what we want to do is, you can see that these are quite deep and fairly harsh in some places, and some areas a little bit misshapen, and it is a very subtle effect that we require. So because we've got to seal this, we get a secondary benefit of making this expand, and what that will do is this will soften this up and give us that hexagonal pattern as if it's embossed, but not too mechanical. So using your heat gun, being careful not to concentrate too much on the glued areas. So what we're going to do is just gradually seal this up and watch this smooth out to the degree that we want it. And there you can see it's now embossed. It's quite smooth. Some places have gone a little bit more. You can always go back in and do another bit if you want, but it is difficult once it's curved, but I'm quite happy with that. The other thing is as you can see, this is a little bit more curved than that one, so what I'm going to do is, whilst we're heating it, I'm going to actually hold it into the position that I want with it curved and set that. So heat it up and then let it cool whilst it's in the position that you want. And what that will do is, once that's cooled down, that should be then nicely in the position you want. And then we have our second shoulder piece ready for painting. So as we've said before, in order to paint this we need to seal it, which we've done with the heat gun. The next thing I'm going to do is put wood glue on it. Paint a layer of wood glue, let that go off, and then you can spray on top. And it's quite flexible, and because it's got wood glue, you'll find that the paint doesn't crack. I also put another layer of wood glue over the top, and then another layer which is ultra. This is going to be quite a hard wearing piece, so it needs to be fairly well protected. So wood glue, paint, wood glue, final layer. If you really want to make it shiny, you can put lacquer on top and then polish it, lacquer it, polish it, lacquer it. But this is a piece that's going to get fairly well worn, not too worried about it. So that's ready for painting. There you go.